Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hemish, and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 3. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. Today I'm joined by Ashley Preston. Ashley is the SVP of Regulatory and Quality at Blossom Hill Therapeutics. I really wanted to speak with Ashley because he spent most of his leadership career in regulatory affairs, and he took on his first quality leadership role in 2019. So as a result, he's really had to rely on his core leadership skills, his softer skills, his ability to communicate, his ability to build trust, and really understand the people that he's both leading and reporting up to. So we speak a lot about the role that quality plays in the industry, the importance of quality, and how quality leaders can really drive the value and get quality a better seat at the table. So this is a really good episode to listen to for anyone looking to improve their leadership skills, some practical tips on how to build better relationships with your people and the people around you, and how to really drive quality across the business and across the industry. So let's get into it. Hi, Ashley. Welcome to Let's Talk Quality. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. My pleasure. Ashley, I've given you a very brief introduction, but if you could give the listeners and viewers just a really quick high-level overview of who you are and what you're doing, and then we can get into it after that.
I'm Ashley Preston and currently heading Regulatory, Quality and Medical Writing at Blossom Hill Therapeutics.
Excellent. And you're based in Boston. Grew up in Melbourne?
Grew up in Melbourne, yes.
Moved to the cold, yeah. So how long have you been in Boston now?
So I spent 10 years in Boston so far, and spent 6 years before that in Singapore. So it's been a bit of a world tour.
Yeah, well, you made it east gradually.
Yes.
Okay, well, look, take us back to the beginning. You've had an interesting career path starting in the regulatory space and moving into quality. So I'm really keen just to understand the why you made the shift from reg to quality. And I suppose what's that given you as a quality leader? Let's start with the beginning then. How did you initially get into science? How did that evolve into regulatory?
Sure. Wow, go way back. So I was originally interested in science during high school, and then went to Monash University in Melbourne in Australia, where I grew up, and did a Bachelor of Science. And during that, it's sort of the natural path is to continue in science, continue into a PhD program. So I did a PhD program in pharmacology, actually enrolled through RMIT University in Melbourne also. And during my PhD, I realized that I really enjoyed science, but I didn't want to be at the bench. So, I started looking at different opportunities that I could take up once I finished my PhD in industry. And regulatory stood out to me. I always also had an interest in kind of law and the legal aspects of drug development. And so that was a beautiful fit. And I submitted my thesis, and in the end of 2023, and then early 24, I was on the phone to recruiters and happened to land a job at GSK in regulatory affairs. And so I built my career from there, been predominantly regulatory. And then thinking about your question, how did I end up also having quality? So it's more of an evolution of sorts, really. So by the time my first foray into quality-related aspects, I suppose, of drug development was my role when I moved to the US. I took on a role at EMD Serono, which was regulatory science, process compliance, and training. And you can see there, the process compliance training element was the quality-related aspects of the operations for the regulatory organization at EMD. And the reg organization at EMD is about 600 people. So all the SOPs, the quality management system for that division was the responsibility of my team there. So it gave me a foray into quality. In addition to that, of course, as you know, regulatory and quality are quite interrelated and synergistic. So I'd always had exposure to compliance and sort of quality-related elements in my regulatory career. But it wasn't until I joined Syros Pharmaceuticals in 2018 as head of regulatory, and then there was an opportunity. And that's really how I landed was just being given the opportunity to take on more responsibilities to build my repertoire, if you like, of expertise. And my boss at the time said, listen, we need someone to lead quality in this organization. Would you be willing to take that on as part of your umbrella of functions? It's related to regulatory, and we think you could do it justice. And I said, okay, on one condition, that I'm able to hire experts in the detail to then enable them to do their best work, and I can use what I know to oversee what's happening and learn as I go, if you like, in the quality space. So know enough to be dangerous, as I say. And it's been quite a ride. And from there, I love it because there's always something else to learn. I say every day is a school day. And so, there's always something else to learn. And I really enjoy thinking through problems. And really, to me, quality is a lot of, again, mapping out problems, thinking through how you're going to solve that problem, which is attuned with regulatory as well, kind of synergistic.
Yeah. What were the characteristics, do you think, from a sort of a personality, a leadership perspective that your boss saw in you, who thought, and it made him think, right, this Ashley can lead quality as well? I appreciate there may be some sort of situational reasons for it, but at the same time, there's a shift in leadership style. You didn't have the technical expertise, so I'm assuming this was all about you as a person, you as a leader. So, what do you think made it, in terms of your attributes? Why did they make give you that opportunity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe that you're right. We were in need of quality leadership within the organization. We had some folks working in quality, and we needed to build that complement of strength. I would think that what I brought with me was an ability to think through problems logically, to sort of stress test ideas, and to find the best solution. Understanding that, and maybe you'd already heard me talk previously about regulatory affairs. People used to think regulatory was the policeman with the stop sign. You can't telling everyone in the function in the other functions what they can't do. But really, I see regulatory and quality, to be honest, as the GPS, because there's always a way to get to where you want to be. The responsibility, if you like, of regulatory quality is to find the most efficient path in a compliant way to get to the goal that we're looking for a given program or an organization. And so I would think that it's that ability to bring people together to find a solution, and not necessarily panic at the first sight of a deviation or some problem. Just break it apart, think through the steps that you need to solve that problem, because even the agencies know that nobody's perfect. We work in a human system, and so long as you can show appropriate oversight and appropriate mechanisms by which you can enforce compliance and ensure compliance, then you're okay.
So tell me about the early days of you taking on quality then. You're obviously overseeing regulatory and quality. Yes. What did you have to learn from sort of the...
Yes. So my first day taking on quality, I had to learn, number one, how to do write a temperature excursion memo. Quite literally. We needed it for our clinical trial materials. But beyond that, it was really, really learning about quality culture and the quality mindset, and how to propagate that through the organization. And then really honing what I'd already understood from sort of being on the periphery of quality in my regulatory career, and really putting more meat on the bones of that knowledge. So, I knew about GCP, I'd done GCP training, but I'd never actually been involved in dealing with GCP issues in any depth. And so it was just additive to that. So I knew, okay, GCP, these are the outline of GCP, I've trained on it. But what happens when a site does X, Y, and Z, and what do we do to remediate that? Or how does an audit work? And how do you actually execute on an audit? I'd seen the reports, I'd dealt with it from a regulatory perspective, but the mechanics of that and understanding how to think through that, and then the quality planning for an organization, particularly coming into taking on quality in a small biotech. It's not just the execution of quality activities, but it's the quality strategy. And implementing that and thinking through what is and isn't achievable in a small company environment, and what's a reasonable risk tolerance for a small company versus a large company. Those type of things where you have to also engage not only with the people doing the work, but also with senior leadership to bring them along for the ride in terms of quality oversight from a total leadership perspective.
Yeah. So you've been in that role. You obviously brought in some experts to help you on that journey. What would you say your almost superpower is now? So as a quality leader, leading both quality and reg now in your role, what do you see as your strengths?
I think being able to ask the right questions and sort of stress test an idea, think through all the different scenarios, or to try to mitigate risks and mitigate outcomes as much as possible, or negative outcomes. So thinking through, okay, this is our quality problem. There are 5 different ways to solve it. How do we evaluate those 5 different ways? What are the pros and cons of each? what does that do to what are the risks of each? What could be the outcome upon inspection? And how would we mitigate that? And then trying to drive the team to sort of negotiate amongst themselves and think through what is the best strategy to take in the broader scheme of things, in the broader picture of the total company environment. What can we afford to do? And what level of risk can we afford to take as an organization? And then being able to communicate that to different audiences of different levels of understanding of the technical aspects of quality.
Yeah.
From senior leadership onwards.
It's really about the cultural piece, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah. There's no way I can make up the time. I haven't spent my whole career in quality, so from a technical perspective, I can only learn as much as I can learn in the time I've had, been responsible for quality. That's why those technical experts are critical to success. Yeah. And then being able to engage with them and have a sort of healthy debate, have a different lens also. That's another piece. I'm coming at from a totally different perspective than most people coming into quality. And that can help because I don't necessarily have preconceived ideas on what should or shouldn't happen. And I just even ask the dumb questions. That's still gets us somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's exactly it. You're coming in with a fresh perspective and no preconceived notions. Before you got into quality, then, like, how did you perceive quality as a regulatory leader? Obviously, closely linked, but what was your perception of quality?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say predominantly process focused and compliance focused, sort of the enforcement end. And the process end, and that was probably also driven by my prior experience in having to manage the SOPs and quality system for the regulatory organization. That was my key engagement with the quality folks in general. Was on process and the end result of compliance. But the big learning for me was the upstream culture, quality as a quality by design, if you like, in trying to infuse a quality mindset into everything that we do from the early stage to then lead to better outcomes at the end of the day.
And then going into quality, then you had that sort of processes and systems was your perception of quality. You've then been able to bring in your own leadership style into that cultural piece. You then bring in technical expertise underneath you. In that position there, that's a challenging role because there's potential pushback that you're going to get from the so-called experts or technical experts. How do you manage? That's a really tough, potentially a tough environment to navigate, right, from a leadership perspective. So how do you manage pushback from people that are experts when you don't have the same level of quality expertise as the leader, and how do you handle that sort of those debates?
I handle it in the same way that you handle a debate with even my regulatory folks. I try to hire the smartest people I can find with the best experience that I can find across any function. And then as the leader, you give them the environment to do their best work, let them have at it and help them to stress test ideas and navigate and remove roadblocks sort of internally and externally as much as possible. And so in a quality sense, I would sit around with the technical experts in my team and we could debate a particular issue. And I would be trying to bring them along and teach them sort of the negotiation tactics and the big picture thinking of the organization and how this fits within the development scheme and what isn't possible. And they would bring and teach me the technical aspects, and we would meld them together. Yeah. And it's really about the approach. If you take it as a partnership, and that's how I work with all of my team on a particular issue on day-to-day work. We're partners in that. Yeah. Yes, I'm the boss or the head of a group. And ultimately, there are some decisions that I have to just make based on the evidence I see before me. But by and large, at least my philosophy is that we should empower the team of experts to make those decisions wherever possible within certain sort of guardrails, if you like. And then that empowers them, and they are ultimately best placed, or at least to make a strong recommendation for a particular path, which we then test out together. And then if I have to push that up the chain for approval, so be it. We do so, and we do so together.
Yeah. I mean, you use that word empowerment there a couple of times, and it's very much about your partnership and the relationships that you've had to forge. So I'm guessing in that early stage, particularly with the quality folk, it was a lot of relationship building and getting to sort of win hearts and minds.
Yes, it is at a fundamental level. I'd worked with a couple of the folks in my regulatory role. I was there for almost a year before I took on quality. So we had the personal rapport, and sort of professional relationship before I stepped into that role to lead quality. So I think they knew how I operated anyway, and that's how I operate with everyone. It's certainly not to forget that we're also in that. We're not only there to do the work, but we're there to build the next generation of leaders in any function, quality, regulatory, or otherwise. And so the best we can do is to, like you say, empower them and give them the skills to take on that leadership role and surpass us eventually.
Yeah. So talk to us about that, those early years and how that your quality leadership career has evolved since getting that first role then. How's the path looked?
Yeah, so a first role, taking it on at Syros, building the quality system for them, and also it's at a time when a lot of fundamental quality elements needed to be built. The day-to-day compliance work was being done, but we needed to implement an EDMS, for instance, and an LMS QMS system. So implementing that system, implementing a number of additional process, SOPs, policies that are fundamental. And at that time, we were then gearing up from phase 2 into pivotal phase 3 studies. Towards the end of my time there, we were gearing up for inspection. So we were anticipating filing the NDA. So a lot of inspection readiness, making sure that we had all our pieces in place both at the site level, at the company level, and our contract manufacturers and so on. So that at any time after we filed that NDA, we would be ready for inspection. And that in itself is a huge task. Let alone the ongoing quality work. And from there, I was able to then translate that into my role at Blossom Hill, which is then in a similar position. So we have 2 clinical programs in phase 1, and so we're thinking about setting up quality, setting up a quality culture and quality systems. And so it's again sort of another building process, which quite honestly I enjoy. I enjoy the building, the team building, company building, and system building aspect of my role. So it's a fun time.
So let's talk about that then. That whole building system, something you thrive on by the sounds of it. Do you have going into a company now? Do you almost have a playbook around how you go about things?
I have some key elements for a small company. I mean, one of the things that is often missed is the leadership quality oversight, the quality management review, which is a requirement in the reg. So you have to set up some system by which the senior leadership of the organization has appropriate oversight of quality, making sure that they're not bogged down with the bureaucracy of it and not bogged down with the detail, but having enough information to legitimately have appropriate oversight or come inspection. And so setting up those systems and also bringing the company around to thinking about quality as a partner at the table. So often enough, you'll find quality is someone they go to when they have a problem, rather than quality having a seat at the table on the development team, for instance. And so I'm a big proponent of that. So you bring quality along to the development team, and they're able to give input on various different topics, from a pure quality mindset perspective, as well as the technical GCP and GMP perspectives. And I think that allows you to mitigate risks earlier than you would. So you bring that in, bring that mindset in, bring that resource to the development team, and they're able to contribute and sort of head off potential risks downstream much earlier than you would have if you didn't have them there. And that works out better for everybody. It's less cumbersome, you reduce your risk, and you increase your compliance across the board for both GMP and GCP.
Yeah. So your current setup, you mentioned there, quality having a seat at the table.
Yes.
Why? How? That's really important. There's not in smaller biotech. It's probably slightly easier, but you look at a lot of the bigger organizations. There's very few chief quality officers in positions in comparison to other functions.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that's a problem, or do you think that
quality
is fine where it sits, generally speaking?
I think when you think about the traditional C-suite, you don't necessarily think about chief quality officer or chief regulatory officer, chief reg and quality together. That C-suite role with that functional expertise. And I think it's a gap. It is a gap, and we do see it more often now. We're starting in the last probably 5 to 10 years. I guess we've seen an increase. Chief regulatory officers, chief quality officers at small and large companies. And I hope that is the result of recognition of the importance strategically of regulatory and quality to the outcomes of the organization as a business, because it's critical, and everything we do is regulated. So it stands to reason that quality and regulatory are critical to every step of the way, from discovery through to being on the market and life cycle management. So I think that I'm glad to see that happen. I think there's a lot more we can do to drive that. I think from recognition from the senior management of companies, but also from the professionals working in quality and regulatory, to really have that company mindset as well, that total development and total business mindset. And I think from both ends, if we have greater recognition from senior management and greater push and drive to be involved in those type of conversations from the operators in those functions, I think we'll see more of that happening in the future. But I think it's critical, because the regulatory and quality compliance pathway for a molecule is a huge component of its value to the organization, whether it's for transactions or ultimately for commercialization.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, why do you think it is, though? What's and there's obvious answers in the sense of, quality being, like you said earlier, around just systems and processes. But why do you think that quality specifically hasn't had that seat at the table? And it's only been in the sort of last 5-10 years where you've seen more of those chief quality officer positions, or maybe a chief reg and quality officer together. Yeah. What are the reasons for it, and why do you think it's shifted over the last 5-10 years?
I think ultimately the first thought for investors, for boards, for leadership teams is about the science, the clinical aspect, and the finances, because you need to have something that works scientifically, that works in the clinic, and you need to be able to pay for it and fund it. So they're always front of mind. And it's always been a sort of an afterthought that, yes, okay, you need to deal with FDA on that as part of that clinical development, or part of that manufacturing, part of that. I guess the financing piece is a little bit different. But I think it's not so much sort of anymore. It's not transactional as it used to be. I think there's just that increasing understanding that as regulations increase, as the number of guidances increase, the expectations of the agencies increase, you need people at the table who understand that. You understand how to be compliant, how to understand how to interpret the regulations. And so it may also be by virtue of failures along the way. So you see failures that have been due to inadequate quality compliance, or manufacturing, or GCP, or inadequate regulatory strategy in some way or another. They lead to failures, and then the reaction is, okay, we need to think about this a little deeper and bring people to the table. And so by that means, it looks like there's increased recognition of that. It can only be, to me, it can only be a good thing. And I hope to see that continue in the future.
Yeah. And what do you think quality leaders like yourself, you mentioned earlier, it's up to us to drive this forward. How do you do that? How do quality leaders in senior level positions, how do they continue to articulate quality and get quality a better seat at the table?
I think that's the trick.
Yeah, it's a big question, I know.
Yeah, it can be hard for you have to develop the phenotype where you're able to persuade and communicate well with senior leadership and help them to understand the value proposition that comes along with having greater quality input at earlier stages and more often in the development teams. And so I think fundamentally for folks who are a little more technically minded, they need to develop those softer skills in communication and understanding. Develop, the buzzword executive presence, developing that as an individual. And I think then maybe as a collective, that the quality community perhaps can also do some work to highlight the value that quality brings to companies as a whole, and then overlay that with just everyday thinking, okay, this is what I'm doing in quality, but how does that impact the total development and the total business? And having that lens, at least having it in your mind when you're conducting your work, will lead you towards that type of thinking and communicating that value.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's when I've recruited into quality for a long time now. I started in 2011, but when I set up the business RX group and decided to focus purely on quality into the US. And it was very much, I could sense that it's like the frustration in the industry particularly from sort of middle management, director level, maybe VPs, just not having that voice in a business, and the frustrations that every quality leader would have had at some point in their career. I do think that it is getting better, the perception of quality from other functions across the biotech sector. But there's still a gap, and it's all about, I think, that yes, you can have all the technical expertise, but it's so important for young leaders, aspiring leaders, to be working on themselves as leaders, working on their softer skills, communication, their ability to influence and negotiate. It's not something that comes naturally to quality leaders because of the start of their career and having to. But it's so important. You're sitting across the business. You're working cross functionally. And there's some great leaders I have had on the podcast, and it's part of my role I see is recruiting into quality is to help the next generation of leaders improve their softer skills, which is why I've got this mentor scheme we're doing where people like yourself are mentoring up and coming directors. But like from your perspective, softer skills and leadership skills, how do you start developing them when you're younger? Because you're not leading necessarily in that early stage in your career, but you have to start developing them to put yourself in a position to lead in the future and be a strong leader. What's important? What can people start doing now who are maybe in that early part of their career to work on the skills to get the bigger job in the future?
Yeah, I think depending on your having self-awareness as a starting point. So be aware of how you operate, how you communicate, and what your phenotype is. Are you a more technical introverted phenotype? Are you more extrovert? And try to find some balance. I mean, really, to me, leadership in general should really be about balance, having the right tool for the right job at the right time. And having a leadership toolkit, if you like, that you can call on at different times for the right situation to get the outcome that you need and that you want. And so as a young quality professional, I would say have a little bit of introspection, see what you can find out about yourself, and then look and see how you can learn about the soft skills, learn about EQ, and learn communication techniques and skills. And then find someone in the organization, it doesn't have to be in quality, someone in the organization who you can use as a mentor, as a guide, if you like, who can help you to bounce some of those ideas and help you to guide you in terms of the pure soft skill elements. Sometimes that's someone maybe in HR, maybe it's someone, another leader within the organization. And if the right person that you choose is probably they're going to stand out to you as a good choice because they have high EQ, and therefore they'll be open to helping you because that would be part of their phenotype. And I think then taking the opportunities where they come. So at a practical level in a meeting, when you're dealing with a particular issue, see if you can find some aspect of that relates to the total development scheme and the business. Have those things in mind, and just small opportunities to think, well, how does this apply? And maybe ask some questions or give some suggestions as to how this might apply, how this might impact the business. This builds that sort of snowballing effect of experience. And you might be surprised how when you demonstrate that in the a few times, people start to engage with you on those type of topics as well. They see, this person knows and thinks broadly about the whole business, so let's engage them in that type of discussion more often. So I think it's that kind of aspect, and it's not easy. And everybody, as you say, everybody has different abilities, different superpowers, and they're all important. So I think it's just finding a balance and bringing up more of the powers that maybe you don't have right now, so that you can balance out your strengths that you already have.
But it starts with that self-awareness piece, doesn't it? That's
yes,
where it all starts, and a lot of people naturally don't have self-awareness, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How do you take that inwards look? What's the starting step?
I mean, I've done there's a kind of a Myers-Briggs distillation type thing called insights. They give you the colored bricks, and you figure out what personality type you are and what your strengths and what your opportunities for sort of improvement are in terms of soft skills. So you can if your company offers that, or if you're able to take that. I know it does cost money, but there's other resources online that are free. You can also then, there's a lot of material online that's available. Podcasts, different things that you can take, and then 360 feedback. I mean, I think in an organization, 360 feedback across the board is important, and regular 360 feedback. So what I've implemented, our HR at Syros was very, very strong on this, and she was fantastic. Is to have regular, so quarterly or 6 monthly 360 feedback, not just waiting for the end of the year for end of year review and find out in January you could have changed something that would have made a difference all the way through. And getting that 360 feedback from a variety of people around you, people you work with, senior leadership. If you have direct reports, get direct reports, and taking that and bringing that in and sort of taking a look at it for what it is, a snapshot in time of people's sort of perspective on you, and then learn from that. And take it in the positive light that it's even sort of critical feedback is a learning opportunity for you and something that you can then work on in the future. That a few ways to sort of get some introspection, get some self-awareness, and what you do with it is the most important piece from there.
Yeah. Awesome. I completely agree. You've obviously got some really good practical tools there that you've implemented. You mentioned insights, so that's a really good tool. Do you do this with your team and the people underneath you as well, just to
Absolutely. Something that I actually do is to share my insights colors with my team. And another exercise I've done previously is to write down your leadership philosophy, a one-page leadership philosophy. And there's guides on how you can do that and how you can, different things you should think of. And I did that. We did that as an exercise previously in my last company, and I brought it with me. And at Blossom Hill, when I joined Blossom Hill, I gave it to my team, the people who were already at Blossom Hill, working, and I sort of inherited them when I joined the organization. I said, look, we're going to be working together. I'm looking forward to this. Just as a sort of guide, here's my leadership philosophy, a one-pager, and they give it to them to read and digest, and we talk about it, and it sets us off, I think, in a good footing for a great working relationship moving forward. And then you just have to live that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What does that look like in terms of, is that made up of your belief system, your values?
Yeah. So what do you believe? What do you see as your leadership sort of hallmarks, if you like? What do you expect of the team? What do you want? Can they expect of you? And you craft it in that way. And so it lays out very clearly. So some of the aspects of mine, I expect my team to challenge me on different topics. If they have a different idea, bring it forward. We're here to do the best for the team and the best for the organization. So, I don't know everything, that's for sure. And particularly when you think of the quality space, I know even less. So, if you have an idea and you have a thought that's different to mine, let's talk about it and let's figure out which, maybe it is a better idea, and therefore we should implement that because it gives us a better outcome for the organization, that type of thing. I want people to be able to be comfortable and be themselves. I want people to be able to, speak openly and really, focus on. Also, an important one is having, an assumption of good intent. Not many people get up in the morning and decide, I'm going to make everybody's life terrible today. Everybody's trying to do their best work. Sometimes things get in the way, and let's figure out how to remove those roadblocks and work more efficiently together.
How about managing upwards in your experience?
Yes.
Obviously, you've got to do a good job in developing succession underneath you, but an important part of what you do is communicating the message from senior leadership.
Yes.
So how do you go about building relationships with your boss, and how do you continue to sort of drive the importance of quality to the leadership team?
Yeah, very much in the same way, making sure that we have a good collegial relationship, we're open communication, making sure that we have the assumption of good intent for everybody around the table. And then in terms of quality, again, leveraging that sort of perspective on how quality can drive value for the organization, driving value and reducing risk. And so that is a great lever for senior leadership, C-suite, and so on, because that's what drives the success of the company, value and minimizing risk for the organization, and then demonstrating that. Take some small pieces and small achievements. Say, look, we've implemented X. This is the value that it gives us. This is how it reduces our risk. This is how it makes people more efficient. Having examples that you can demonstrate to senior leadership is really effective. And also on a personal level, understanding their colors, if you like, in the insights model. How do they like to communicate? How do they like to receive information? Someone who's if people know insight, someone who's very blue is all in the details. So that person was going to want a lot of detail around this. The other folks, maybe not so much. Maybe they want to hear a little bit about the softer aspects. Yeah. And so being able to tailor and understand your audience and tailor your message in that way and use those skills in the right way gets you the most effective response.
Yeah. Yeah. You strike me as someone that's been very proactive around their leadership development over the years.
I have, and I've seen it change as well. The insights colors I've probably done about 8 times, and from more junior levels, and I've seen it change.
What are your colors?
So actually, I lead off with red, green, yellow, and blue.
Okay.
But they're all bar blue. Would you believe? All bar blue are above the 50% mark they put, and they're all relatively even. So it's an interesting one. It wasn't always that way. It was very much when I was younger. Very much green stood out. A bit of red, but green and yellow. I think that sort of personal aspect.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's always blue. I mean, I'm a scientist at heart, but I think the evolution as you get into leadership matters less and less the technical skills and more the leadership skills. And so I think what I've seen over the last sort of 5 to 10 years is the leveling out of the first 3 and blue sort of coming along behind.
Yeah, I suppose naturally as you go more senior, that red becomes.
You need it.
It's more sort of direct leadership.
Yes. Yeah.
versus sort of the green and yellow, I guess, more relationshipy and sort of empowering people. I guess it's a blend of, having a blend of red, green,
Yes.
And yellow is probably quite important at your level.
Absolutely. And of course, everybody has all of the colors in some level. I've seen some profiles where red was off the charts and everything else was below, but they're still there. And I think it's how you use that. People assume red. I think of red as getting things done, making sure things, and being able to drive for results. Not necessarily red just directing people and telling them what to do, but driving the team to get results, and doing that with a good mixture of sort of green and yellow along the way helps you get there and not burn bridges and relationships. I think that's it.
And you obviously alter your style of communication for someone who is very blue, for example, to someone who is 100% red, let's say.
Yes.
Is that how do you because that's again, it's quite hard.
Yes.
To do that when you've got a team of different personalities.
Yeah, I think, if I'm trying to present the same information to someone who's very red, they want to know the three key points and what it means for the organization. The blue person wants to know the 3 key points with maybe three sub-bullets of the detail of why, and then, the calculation. And so thinking about that, you're getting the same information across at the end of the day, but the delivery is very different. And that's an extreme example, but just being able to tweak it a little bit and understand or anticipating questions. So yes, you may deliver have the same slide. It's got the same information on it, but the red person or someone who leans red, if you like, would be more likely to be asking questions about the bottom line and when's it going to be done. Yeah. Somebody looking at the same information who's blue is going to ask more questions about the details, and just be ready for that. That's Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's really good. For anyone that doesn't know the Insights tool, I think it's a great practical exercise to do with your team and your leadership team and yourself. So thank you for going into detail on that.
Absolutely.
And like I said, I think you strike me as someone who's been proactive throughout your career around developing themselves, and obviously going from reg into quality, you've had to rely on your strength as a leader and as a people person to be able to progress in your career.
Indeed.
What are you excited about then? So you're SVP of Quality and Reg now at Blossom Hill. What does the future look like? What are you excited about?
I'm excited about bringing new medicines to patients. Nobody gets into this business unless there's an element of that for them, because it's a hard road. Often we see failures in different promising medicines. So that's really what I'm excited about. And then helping teams to build. I love building teams, thinking through problems, and helping the team to succeed. And so, it's really satisfying when you have a problem to deal with and you finally work your way through. And I love a whiteboard as well, whiteboarding ideas, whiteboarding solutions. And then when you're really gelling with the team and you've got that vibe happening, you're throwing ideas back and forth, and you eventually work out that puzzle and say, okay, here's what we've got. Here's the best we can do with with the data we have. So, that's the fun part.
Ashley, thanks so much for coming on the show. I think a lot of people will take there's some good practical insights, and that's what it's about, is providing value and hopefully some inspiration to aspiring quality leaders or regulatory leaders that want to take the shift into quality in the future. You never know.
Indeed.
I've got some quick fire questions just to end this, and talking about inspiration and on that theme. Who's been the biggest inspiration in your life? And this could be personally or professionally.
Well, absolutely. That one's easy for me, my wife. Multiple reasons, but we as a family also have moved, as I said, from Australia to Singapore to the US, and we don't have family in either of those countries, and so our family unit is very tight. And my wife, as my life partner in that, is my inspiration. Keeps me honest, keeps me grounded, and challenges me as well on a daily basis. And it's fantastic because she has a very, very unique way of thinking about things, thinking through problems, very high EQ as well. And so she'll say, "Wow, what do you think about this? So, when you said that, maybe you should have approached it this way." So I'm always bouncing ideas from her, and she makes me a better person. So I love her for that.
Great. This, I suppose, speaks a bit about your leadership philosophy, but what are the 2 or 3 most important values that guide how you lead?
Absolutely. In terms of leadership balance, like I said, having the right tool for the right job. So being able to draw on different leadership skills, understand when you need to be a little more directive, understand when you need to be, a little more consultative, and also elevating the team. You will always be successful. You'll always be a great leader if you are elevating your team. So, you see those leadership models and sort of the leadership memes on Instagram about the leader and the manager. And for me, that really resonates. If your team is successful, you have been successful as a leader. So that's one. The assumption of good intent is another one. Any sort of problem you have to deal with, people around the table, just assume everybody has good intent. They're trying to figure out how to solve this problem, how to move things forward, and there's always a way to do that.
Awesome. What's the best piece of advice, career advice you've ever received?
I think it was really being open to opportunities. So, and if I think about the times in my career I've changed roles, both internally and changing companies, it hasn't often been a proactive look from my perspective. It's been contacted by recruiters, such as yourself or others, and being open to the idea of new opportunities at the right time. And where for me, I'm always looking for the next opportunity would be anywhere where I can bring my skills and provide value to an organization, internally or externally, and then where there's an opportunity to grow and to learn and to grow my career. I think that's where taking on quality, taking on medical writing, clearly, I could have said, well, actually, no, I'd like to keep regulatory. I feel comfortable there. I'm safe. But being open to new opportunities, sure. If I think I can do justice to that, if I have the support to do it, and I think I can add value to the organization, I can grow my career, perfect. We'll take it on. And so doing that throughout your career, obviously you don't necessarily want to move around too frequently, and you want to make sure that you're doing justice to the role that you're in. But if you're doing that and you're open to new ideas and new opportunities, they will come to you.
Ashley, thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure. Thank you, Hemish.
No problem. If people want to get hold of you, is LinkedIn generally the best way?
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, easy to find.
Very good. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. Really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.